Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Patafi. You have seen this program mostly confined to a studio where we usually ask our panelists, our guests, questions about various national interest issues. Today's program is going to be a bit different. Today we have got a panel of experts. We are going to talk about foreign policy, but we have also, with many of the bright and young minds, we are at this moment at the campus of International Islamic University, and today's program is going to be an interactive one where I will hardly be asking questions. Mostly it will be the audience that is present here. And before I actually introduce the participants, I've already said that we are going to talk about foreign policy. It is important to understand the scope of this discussion that we are going to have. Usually, we hear a lot of things that are perhaps not that much factual. We keep on hearing people who talk about the weaknesses of Pakistani foreign policy. I've heard a lot of politicians saying that Pakistan has been isolated. Whether it is the case, whether it is not, we are going to discuss today. Pakistan, since its very inception, had a lot of troubles. It has faced a lot of problems since the very beginning. And it has done whatever it could with the foreign policy, whatever, with the linkages, international linkages, bonds that it had, it inherited, or then it discovered. So today, the focus has to be, A, whether our foreign policy is struggling, or it is not, whether everything is okay. And the second thing that I would like to hear about is if there are challenges, what are those challenges? Pakistan has an identity. We are a Muslim nation, but also we are part of the Committee of Nations. All over the world, we have the responsibility as a nation state. So all these questions we are going to discuss. At the end, we will try to find some solutions as well. And now let me introduce the panelists I've got in this place. I've got with me, by the order of seating, Senator Sahar Kamran Sahiba. Senator, as I've told you, representing Pakistan People's Party. Thank you, ma'am, for being part of the panel. Ambassador retired Ali Sarwar Naqvi, sir, career diplomat, heads a think tank. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of this program. General Talat Masood, sir, needs no introduction. Lieutenant General retired Talat Masood, sir, needs no introduction, and is one of the best Pakistani defense minds, one of the best commentators on defense issues as well. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of this program. And last but not the least, we have Nafees Zakaria sir, former Foreign Office spokesman. Nafees Zakaria sir, thank you very much, sir, for your time. So before I go to the panelists, let me tell our audience here that we have to start with the statement, a 2-minute statement from each participant. They are going to tell us what are the key challenges, what are the areas where we can work more, and then we are going to come to you. And I will request you to always raise your hand when you have a question, wait for your turn, and when you ask a question, I'll really be obliged that you identify yourself as well and the person this question is addressed to. So let me start with Lieutenant General Talat Masood Saab. General Saab, your opening statement about the challenges facing Pakistan today.
Well, I think Pakistan faces extraordinary challenges at this point of time. And I will define some of the major challenges that Pakistan is facing. One is, of course, the challenge, the security challenge, which we are facing, vis-a-vis India. India has, ever since Prime Minister Modi has come into power, I think this threat has increased. And as you can see for yourself that the line of control has been very volatile, and it is deliberately being kept volatile in order to ensure that Pakistan remains under pressure and is not able to develop itself economically, and in a way gives in to the Indian hegemonic designs, which of course, obviously Pakistan is not going to yield to that and is resisting. And so we think that this is a very major threat, but hopefully we think that India would also realize that it is not possible for India to coerce Pakistan into a situation where it can yield to its hegemony. I think the other threat that Pakistan faces is the internal threat, which is the continuous threat of terrorism that we have been facing for a very long time, which is also a legacy of our history, the history of the Afghan Jihad, the events of 9/11, and I think that continues to haunt us. And also the turbulent situation in Afghanistan and the way that Afghanistan's landmass is being, in a way, exploited by Indians in order to create problems, security challenges and problems for Pakistan. The civil-military relationship of Pakistan is also a very key factor, and I think we are moving towards democracy. We are strengthening democracy, but still I think we need to move much faster, and I hope the new change in leadership of the military will also facilitate and accelerate the process of Pakistan becoming a much more powerful and strong democratic country. Otherwise, I would say the economic prosperity of Pakistan is also equally important and the greatest challenge that Pakistan faces. So with this CPEC and with other cooperation with the rest of the world, we hope that Pakistan would also make some very major strides as far as economic development is concerned.
Thank you very much, General Sahab. Now let me come to Senator Sahar Kamran Sahiba. Your point of view, ma'am?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think very correctly, General Talat Masood has pointed out some of the challenges that Pakistan is facing today. We are passing through a very troublesome time. As Pakistan's foreign policy at this time, as India wants to see us, is somewhat in isolation. But at the same time, we have hopes like CPAC and we have the hopes like Shanghai Cooperation Organizations, which are opening the doors for Pakistan's economic prosperity. I do feel that the absence of the foreign minister is one of the key issues that exactly being the member of Pakistan People's Party, I would say that it is one of the core demand of the chairman of Pakistan People's Party to appoint the foreign minister. And we feel that in the absence of foreign minister, there is no in charge of the foreign policy of Pakistan. At this time, if we look towards our region, we are regionally isolated. The failure of not having the SAARC conference as it was scheduled is one of an example. The threat from India, continuous violation of LSE, a sort of a situation of a limited war is there at our borders, at our eastern borders. Situation at the western border is not also at ease. And then our relations with the Gulf countries. So the regional situation of Pakistan, whether those are with the regional countries, the Gulf countries, and those who are our friendly countries, I feel that Pakistan is in isolation, despite that Prime Minister sent his envoys to different countries to highlight Pakistan's stance on Kashmir issue. We did not get a single joint communique from any parliament of the world. So there are issues which are very serious for Pakistan, and there is a serious need that government should pay attention to the foreign policy of Pakistan. It should not stay directionless. It should have a clear direction and a long-term goals that we have to achieve in the best interest of our country.
And regarding the long-term goals, the question also is that Pakistan has been in existence for 70 years. Why we haven't been able to do it already? But we will keep discussing these matters as we move forward in the program. Let me now request Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi to tell us the challenges facing our foreign policy today.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before talking about the specific challenges, let me explain for our younger student body here, and I am so happy to see young ladies outnumbering the young men. So that is a matter of great happiness for me. that in younger generation, the women are playing a very active role. You see, in every country's foreign policy, there are certain constants and certain variables. The constants are what? For Pakistan, we began with friendship with the Middle Eastern countries with whom we have natural affinity of being Muslim and part of the Ummah. Then our role in the international community, we became a very active member of the United Nations, which we still continue to do. And besides that, friendly relations with our neighbors, Iran, Afghanistan, China. But some of these have changed over time. The constants have sometimes been overtaken by the variables. Now, China is a constant. We have had a good relationship with China from the very beginning till today. But there are variables as the relationship with Afghanistan or with Iran go. So you have to see foreign policy in that context. Actually, foreign policy of Pakistan has been quite successful. As I, having put in 40 years in the Foreign Service, I know. But the problem is that the perception that comes out is not always the best interpretation of how we have performed. At the moment, there are two major challenges from foreign policy, purely foreign policy point of view. One is preventing India from getting into the UN Security Council, where it is a candidate, and preventing India from becoming a member of the Nuclear Suppliers Group. So these are the two challenges I think that the foreign policy establishment must address.
Immediately.
Immediately.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Saab. Now let us go to Nafees Zakaria Saab. And sir, you'll notice that the questions have already started piling on for you. There has been a point that has been made about Pakistan's assumed isolation. Please go ahead.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you very much, PTV World, for this opportunity. And definitely it remains our endeavor, and it should remain our endeavor, to educate our younger generation who are the future of Pakistan. And it is important because you listen from every nook and corner, different voices about foreign policy, about a lot of issues which confront Pakistan. And I think in the process, what happens at the end is the perception. You develop a perception, because there are forces who develop perceptions, misperception by design. And there are reasons for a common ordinary mind to see things and then develop its own perception about certain things. So foreign policy is one of those issues about which there are perceptions. And I think it is very important to have these kind of settings to clear perception or misperceptions and allay misperception and have clarity about the the factual position. Like any other country in the world, foreign policy of Pakistan derives its strength from the economic stability or the potential of the country, the political process, political stability, and also the security environment. And all three of them, these factors, they are instrumental in the shaping up of the Pakistan foreign policy since its inception in 1947. There had been paradigm shifts over ages, over these decades, which we have been through, this country has been through. And I think what happens is that these paradigm shifts have been changing because of the domestic environment, because of the regional situation, because of the global situation. And all these factors have to be taken into account when you formulate a foreign policy. There is much said about, especially about the Pakistan foreign policy, that it is not made in the Foreign Office. Well, I think for that matter, any country typically is a same example. Because if you look at the most major power among the Committee of Nations, you will find that it's always a number of stakeholders who actually come together to provide their inputs to form a foreign policy of a country, because it would have the element of security, it would have the element of economy, it would have the element of politics. All these things matter. And once these three factors, they are able to manifest into some sort of achievement, as we have experienced both achievement and definitely setbacks while we passed through these 7 decades, the achievements get reinforced. Once you have a policy where your economy, the potential of your economy attracts the investors from the rest of the world, then it reinforces your economic potential to grow and economic stability to further strengthen. I think as we proceed further with this discussion over here, the questions you might have, I'm sure, would be product of both your ingenuity and also the perception which have been created in your mind. I cannot really go over the foreign policy of Pakistan in just 2 or 3 minutes' time. I think my advice to all of you would be that you must read and read and read. Unless you read through the history, books of history, you will not actually come to grip of why this foreign policy is being pursued at this particular point in time. Right? For example, we are right now focused, the present government's policy focus is on economic development, and overcoming the energy deficiency, and also exploiting the potential of Pakistan's strategic geographical location at the confluence of 3 very important regions, South Asia, Central Asia, and West Asia, how to exploit it to live up to the requirement of the time, which is the interconnectivity of various regions. Because our policy is economic development and shared prosperity. And that would come only with the peaceful neighborhood. So the more focus of the foreign policy at this point in time is on the neighborhood, and also definitely in the countries which are beyond the neighboring countries.
There was this question about isolation or assumed perceived isolation, but as we move into the program, we are going to talk about that as well. Now we are going to open the floor for discussion, your questions. Remember, kindly do raise your hand and make it significantly visible to me, otherwise I won't be able to identify that. Please go ahead. We'll take a few questions, then we'll go to the panel and then come back to you. Please, sir.
My question is to Nafees Zakaria. How would the Indo-US strategic cooperation affect Pakistan? What impact would it have on Pakistan, if you can briefly?
Right. Thank you very much. Next question. There was a gentleman at the back over there.
India is challenging our integrity at LUC on daily basis.
Okay.
It should be solved, but how it can be solved through diplomatically.
Right. India is challenging our integrity at the LOC every day. So what can be done? Any other question, please? Let us go to the ladies.
When we're talking about the foreign policy of Pakistan, we only focus on a selected group of countries like USA, UK, China, Saudi Arabia, and often on Turkey. Why don't we explore more possible alliances in Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and in South America also?
Right. That's a very good question, actually. Thank you. Well, let me bring the questions to the panel now. And Nafees Zakaria sab, naturally, because you have been addressed so much, you'll have to start.
I think first of all, it's Pakistan's policy that when the two countries deal with each other bilaterally, that is not really a matter of concern and should not be a matter of concern. And we expect the same from the other countries. If we are developing relationship with country A, the country C should not be worried about it, unless their relationship is clashing with the interest or detrimental to the interest of Pakistan. Now, the major point which has come to the fore in the Indo-US relationship is what Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi identified, that India is aspiring to become the member of United Nations Security Council and also the energy member. Sir, I'm right? Said these two. So this is what is something which we want to address, and we are actually addressing. And we have actually talked to very openly with the American leadership at various levels that how Pakistan feels that you're giving discriminatory treatment to India by way of actually supporting their membership for NSG going out of the way. Pakistan has taken up this matter not just with one country, but actually it relates to, it has a direct bearing on the strategic stability of the entire region.
Nafees, Zakaria, because we have to keep it
sorry.
short as well. Let me go to General Saab regarding the issue of LOC and what Pakistan, in your view, is doing about it.
Well, I think Pakistan is taking two positions. One is that it definitely wants peace and it wants India to come to the negotiating table because these issues are all of a political nature and they need to be, you need to be engaged with each other. So I think Pakistan on the diplomatic side, on the political side, is taking this position. As far as the military aspect is concerned, it is retaliating. You know, when Indians fire, we also reciprocate and say that we are not going to just receive the fire, we are also going to turn back and retaliate. And it's retaliating, although I think it's a measured retaliation. Whereas in case of India, it is trying to sort of impose its will by terror. In a way, it's trying to terrorize us. But you know, you can't terrorize a nuclear power. You can't terrorize a country of 200 million people. You can't terrorize the people who are so determined not to be, hegemonized. So I think we have to understand that.
Right. Ambassador Ali, Sarwar, Naqvi, sir, there was a question about Pakistan focusing only on big countries, big powers, not focusing on other regions of the world. Please go ahead, sir. Your take.
Well, you see, that is almost inevitable. Most countries are focusing on some select countries for their foreign policy objectives. The rest of the world, much of the countries of Africa, there are more than 50 countries in Africa. Then many of the countries in Latin America, they are more than 30 countries in Latin America. So these countries are also in the same kind of situation. That is why this is called the developing world. You do not achieve any objectives except having goodwill, which we do, which we maintain goodwill with them. But we have to focus on big countries like China and the United States and Western Europe and also ASEAN countries, European Union. So there is this kind of differentiation in the approach that any country adopts. I have a comment about the Indo-US strategic partnership.
Please go ahead, sir, but keep it
yeah, very quick.
brief. Yeah.
You see, it is also a play of global politics, where the United States is the status quo power, it is the has-been power, and now there are emerging powers like China particularly. So the Indo-US strategic partnership is an effort by the United States to link up with a major Asian country to counter China and to counter those countries which are not supportive of the United States. So it is the play of that global politics which has resulted in the US-India strategic partnership.
Right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Saab. And Sahar Kamran Sahaba, although you are the change participant, the insurgent on the panel who says that Pakistan is isolated, I should have probably approached you before others. But now you have a complete list of all three questions and you can address anyone that you like. The only request has to be that kindly keep it short because we have to.
I would be very brief. I would just like to add on the Indo-US strategic cooperation and the relationship, which as very rightly Ambassador Naqvi has pointed out, is the outcome of the US policy, the economic objectives to contain China or the Asia rebalancing policy, and which has negative implications on Pakistan, specifically the Indo-US maritime cooperation, which is going to be ending with the nuclearization of the Arabian Sea. It is a very big challenge for Pakistan. Secondly, because of the increase in Indo-US relations and the US push to get unilateral membership of NSG for India, it is also a very big concern for Pakistan, and very rightly Nafees Zakaria has informed the audience that Pakistan has put forth its case for the NSG membership, and we are actively pursuing that case. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that Pakistan and India, they both are two nuclear countries, and the nuclear deterrence is the only factor that is keeping the both countries away from a big scale war, although there is tension at the borders. And it's not only that we have this threat of war. At the same time, India is also giving a rising trend in the region for the arm race, because the recent agreements of India for acquiring more arms, more weapons is definitely alarming for Pakistan.
And Pakistan should be highlighting that as well. The interesting thing at this moment is that while Pakistan is democratizing, we see a very strange shift in India, where the state and the society are changing and hardening. So maybe Pakistan, the way India has been showcasing, can also showcase India's weaknesses when, as compared to Pakistan, especially when Pakistan is opening up.
Pakistan is not internationally isolated, but I think that we have been isolated regionally because we do not have good relations with our regional member states. And Sahar cancellation is one of the example, I believe. And what is your take on that, sir?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Let us take other questions.
Why Pakistan is always on a defensive mode, whether it is on Pathankot matter or whatever?
How so? How so? Defensive?
Yeah.
If somebody is accusing you of something, you have to give an answer,
yeah.
right? Okay. So the question again, Nafees Zakaria, if you permit me, I have to actually come to you at the end, because the actual questions are being raised here. I end up with the questions rather the answers. So, ma'am, Sahar Kamran Sahiba, please go ahead. Your take on these matters. You can pick whichever question you like.
I believe relations with Russia, which took a new turn in 2011, when Russia supported Pakistan's membership to Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And Russia also took a clear stance of supporting Pakistan at that very time of Salala attack. Russia supported Pakistan's sovereignty. So that was the, again, revival of the Pakistan and Russian relations. And now, since Pakistan has become a full member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and is in the process of signing and ratifying the charter and the treaties to get the benefit of that SCO, I believe Pakistan's relations with Russia at this very moment are very important, specifically when US has taken a turn towards India. We should not keep our relations of Russia-Pakistan dependent on Russia and Indian relations. We have to seek the benefit of Pakistan and Russian relations at this very time. Russia is a country which can supply Pakistan the aircrafts Su-30, Su-35 at the time when US has backed off its deal, F-16 deal. So Russia can also support Pakistan, as Russia is in the recent NSG meeting has supported the Pakistani stance of having a criteria or having further discussion on India's application.
Sahar Kamran Sahiba, thank you very much for that comment. We have to continue this discussion, viewers, but we have to take a small break. Before that, let us take break. When we come back, we will continue to take more questions and seek more answers as well. Take a break. Welcome back. Before going to the break, we were talking about the foreign policy of Pakistan. And at this moment, we are speaking to you from the campus of International Islamic University. There were questions asked before we went to the break. So I'm actually going to put one question that really fascinates me. There was a question about Pakistan being defensive or not. But I'm going to, tinker a bit, and I'm going to say that maybe it has been said in the past as well that Pakistan's foreign policy is a bit reactionary, that we act when there is a challenge knocking at our door. We don't do it before that. So, Ambassador Saab, your take on this question.
You see, only the very big powers can initiate policy. The rest of the world is reactionary. Smaller powers do not have the privilege of setting the tone. They have to follow the developments as they occur. So I think Pakistan does make its own initiatives from time to time within the limited ambit of being a medium-range power.
Right. General Saab, I see that you were actually nodding earlier as well, so I thought that you might be in agreement, so I'm going to add the burden. And I'm just going to say one thing about India versus Pakistan. We understand that Pakistan has to work with every country in the world, especially in the region. Why is it that our Indian peers fail to understand or refuse to understand this bit? Because we see the most of hostility keeps coming from the other side. But you can talk about reactionary, foreign policy as well. You can talk about Russia becoming CPEC, part of CPEC as well. So go ahead.
Well, I think we shouldn't use the word reactionary. I think it's reactive. Why are we reactive? We have
okay.
Because it's a reactionary is something bad. Those countries who really have power, they really dictate policies. And the ones who do not have that much of power react to their policies and try to adjust as to how best they can react to it, either by aligning themselves with another power or by remaining neutral or by agreeing to what the major power wants to do, depending on how their national interests converge. As far as Russia is concerned, I think, the question was that Russia is joining the CPEC. My view is that Russia does not have genuinely a serious interest in CPEC from the economic point of view. Because what does Russia want to sort of export? What does Russia have to export? Russia has to export gas, Russia has to export oil, coal, and that it does. But, it does that to Europe and other places. But this route will not help in that sense, except that probably it will, Pakistan would like to buy from it. But it has some very important strategic connotation that it wants to join a group with China, with Pakistan and others, so that it can have a say in this region.
Thank you very much. Nafees, Zakaria Saab, although most of the questions were put to you, sir. But regarding this reactive and reactionary policy also.
That actually. Yeah. Well, I'll go for, I think, Arfa, your question was unanswered. I must tell you that we are engaging all the countries in the world, but definitely every country has its capacity. And then you have to see both sides' interest. So it takes two to tango. So by and large, we have a foreign policy in which we engage with all the countries. We maintain good relations with some countries. We have good economic, political, and security relations, and with some countries we have just good political relationship. So I think this is what it is. Then somebody, Waleed, you talked about isolation in the context of regional countries. I don't think so that your question actually was valid in the sense SARC. SARC has always been sabotaged by India. SARC summit has been postponed in the past about 8 to 9 times, and it was 5 to 6 times it was India which was instrumental in postponement of SARC summit, and not every time Pakistan was the host of SARC summit. You have to understand the definition of isolation. Isolation would not stand this definition. If you see so many countries, head of the states are coming, visiting Pakistan. You just had people from Europe, you had leadership coming from Central Asia, you had leadership coming from West Asia, and so on and so forth. No country can actually isolate Pakistan. Pakistan does not fall in that category of countries which can be isolated. Pakistan plays a very important role in the regional politics, but also in the global politics. Coming to that particular aspect of defensive, and you mentioned, Sarah, you mentioned about the incidents of Pathankot and Uri, I believe these were the two incidents mentioned. You have to read a lot. You have to see what India actually, how India plays the game. If you go and examine the number of terrorist attacks which have actually happened in India or took place in India, in most of the cases, you will find India behind it, their own, carrying out those terrorist attacks in their own soil and blaming it on other countries, other actors within India as also outside India. It is a responsibility. If we remain silent, we will actually be giving the space to India to propagate its narrative, which we don't want. That's why we initially cooperated in the context of Pathankot. And the cooperation was a signal that to the world that Pakistan is a country which would like to cooperate and do away with this, help countries with dealing with the menace of terrorism. But what happened actually? When we go into the details of that, India has not been able to provide any substantive evidence to that fact. For that matter, even in the Mumbai case, which is world-renowned now, India gained a huge political mileage in the context of Mumbai. But to your surprise, I think, and to everybody's surprise, India till to date has not provided a single material evidence to Pakistan.
Right. Sir, thank you very much. And we have to come back to the audience. Girls are participating first. Let us go there.
Would you please put some light on Pakistan's foreign policy towards Israel? Besides, I want you to put some light on what would be the implications of Pakistan when India and Israel have security cooperation. Thank you, sir.
That's a very good question. Please, next.
My question is that what Pakistan is playing its role for the stability of Afghanistan as compared to India. India is building dams there and some other things like that.
Thank you very much. Let me come back to the panel. So Nafees, Zakaria Sahab, you'll have to keep it brief, but you can answer all these. Start with the Israel question.
Our policy is very clear. We don't have any diplomatic relations with Israel because of the issue of Palestine. As long as that issue is not resolved, and I think this policy is going to be to continue in the foreseeable future, because we don't see Israel issue being resolved in the foreseeable future as well. With regard to balance of power, somebody mentioned about India's rising power. I think you have to look at the myths which are associated with India. India is a country which has a poverty-ridden population of 700 million people, those who live in abject poverty. So it is more to do with the advertisement, the rising India or shining India, than the reality on ground. If you look at this region, Asia-Pacific region, it has all the ingredients to be attracted for any world power or any power or any country in the world, because it has the most manpower. It has those majority of those countries which are actually craving for development. So which means you have more ground to scratch for in terms of economic development and development in other areas. And also because this is a region where you have concentration of traditionally those powers which have been part of the great games which have been played in the past. So you have the nuclear powers, maximum concentration in this region. You have so many nuclear powers over here. So I believe that the countries in this region are already recalibrating their foreign policy options as to where things should move in terms of, while attaining the economic development and prosperity, the maintaining of the strategic balance should be ensured, so that disturbance in strategic stability can definitely offset any economic development which this region has the potential to achieve.
Right. With that, I have to thank Nafees Zakaria sir because he has to leave. Thank you very much, sir. And then we take a small break. After the break, when we come back, we are going to resume the questions. Before going to the break, we were discussing foreign policy of Pakistan. We are going to continue. One of our panelists, Nafees Zakaria sahab, had to leave, but our rest of the panel is here. My question is it not fair to ask that in this day and age, we are talking about balance of power, not collective security, sir?
I think balance of power still matters. There's no doubt about it, because if the balance of power is very much against you, then obviously you remain under great pressure, and you like to seek some alternatives. Well, obviously India, because of its size, because of its economy, and because of the very fact that America also converges as far as their foreign policy is concerned, as their strategic goals are concerned, there is so much of convergence. So you have a superpower and you have a regional power, and there is a convergence on them in order to countervail China. So I think we have an advantage in that sense, that because they are trying to converge on China and put pressure on China and try to make sure, actually the whole policy of America at the moment has been, for quite a few years actually, in order to find regional players, very important and strong regional players, to sort of bring down China so that it doesn't have to rise to a superpower level and be kept reduced at the regional level. So now, having said that, India has, of course, as I said, there is a great convergence in terms of strategic aims and so on. So because India also wants to counter China, America, of course, wants to counter China because it's a rising power. So what has happened is this alignment has to be then countervailed by China, and China is trying to countervail it by having a very close relationship with Russia. It is having a close relationship with Pakistan.
Ambassador Sahab, Senator Sahiba, with your permission, if you allow us, let us take a couple of more questions and then we can bring back questions to the panel. Kindly go ahead.
What would be the impact of President Trump's policies on the Pakistan-US relations?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question, although you waited for the concluding session to ask that question.
My question is about economic relation of Afghanistan and Pakistan. Stability need cooperation. So why economic cooperation among Afghanistan and regional states are disturbed always, if Ambassador Saib enlightened? And another question, what's Pakistan foreign policy against emergence of Daesh in South Asia region?
One more questioner, please.
My question is to Mr. Talat Masood. Is there any possibility of nuclear war in South Asia?
That's an amazing question, a fascinating question. Now, Ambassador Saab, I have to start with you, sir. There are so many questions.
There are so many questions.
Yeah.
I will begin with the latest, and that is about Trump. What will be the impact of President Trump when he assumes office in January? The point is that in the United States, there is continuity of foreign policy objectives, and it does not change that much with the change of president. There is a certain continuity and permanence in US foreign policy, and Trump might disturb that to a certain extent, but not to a very large extent. I don't think so. About Afghanistan, you see, Pakistan has been trying to play a constructive role in Afghanistan by bringing the different stakeholders in Afghanistan together. And Pakistan has no friends or favorites in Afghanistan. Pakistan is a neighbor that wishes well with Afghanistan. Somehow the relationship has been quite disturbed because of basically what Pakistan government now considers as the problem of border management. If there are militants and people who are determined to carry out violence, who move from one side to the other, it is bad for both countries. So that must be stopped, number one. Number two, there should be peace talks, and peace talks between all these stakeholders in Afghanistan. And that we are still endeavoring or trying to see that can be achieved, but so far there hasn't been much success. Kashmir, you see, Kashmir is an issue. The UN resolutions apply, but the UN resolutions must have the compliance of those countries which are involved. The problem in this case is that India has not complied with the UN resolutions. And till India complies, UN cannot do anything, because UN is a grouping of sovereign states. All those states with which UN is dealing with must agree to what the UN is saying, and only then action can be taken.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Saab. Senator Saba, your take on these questions?
I think regarding Trump, we have to wait and see, because the political statements during the election and the different type of statements that we have been hearing from Trump, and those are contradictory to his own other statements, I think we have to wait. But at the same time, Pakistan has to make efforts to forge relations with United States. We have to find some friends in the Trump administration also. Pakistan should take help of its diaspora. Pakistan should take help of the Pakistani caucus there. Pakistan should develop relations with the US congressmen, US senators, because that is we cannot just cut off our relations because of one person who is being chosen as a president, but exactly the state policies continue and the state interests are pursued by the countries. Regarding Kashmir, our position is very clear. From the very first day, Pakistan supports the right of self-determination of the people of Kashmir. And we have been asking United Nations again and again for the implementation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions, which are still pending at the UN agenda. So this is what we are looking, because until and unless atrocities in Kashmir are stopped and the action is taken by United Nations, the peace cannot be achieved in this region, the South Asian region. So the peace in this region is directly related to the solution of the Kashmir issue. Right. Then with Afghanistan, that is our foreign policy goal, to have good relations with Afghanistan. Pakistan has been helping Afghanistan in its development. Afghan refugees, still 1.4 million Afghan refugees are here in Pakistan. We have kept them as a guest for so many years, for decades. We have opened the transit trade routes for Afghanistan. So this is what Pakistan has done, and Pakistan will continue, because you cannot change your neighbors. And Afghanistan, we have a natural ties with Afghanistan. It's a Muslim country, and we would like to strengthen our relations in future, and that is the only objective that Pakistan has. Regarding the nuclear war, nuclear weapons are not to be used. It was US and it was used in Hiroshima. After that, it's a political tool. It is to avoid the wars, not to engage the wars between the two countries. So the nuclear deterrence, and I would say that, yes, very rightly pointed out, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto is a role model foreign minister and the prime minister, who did not made Pakistan the nuclear power, who brought all the Muslim countries together on one table in 1974, and who created a lot of space for Pakistan internationally and added a lot of prestige to our country.
Right. Thank you very much, Sahar Kamran Sahab. General Sahab, the questions are in front of you, so you can talk about these matters as well, and kindly also conclude the session for us with your remarks.
Thank you very much. I think first I must congratulate you for asking some very intelligent and questions which really are a challenge for Pakistan. And it seems that you are being very well educated, and you are very good students as well. because your learning curve is very high. So I congratulate you on that to begin with. And then I think as far as the questions are concerned, and my concluding remarks are, first, the question regarding America. America today the President of America is an enigma, in the sense that people all over the world, including in America, do not know as to exactly how he will perform, what he has been saying during the elections. Will he pursue the same policy, what he had said during the elections, or he will be a different person with different policies when it comes to, governing America? I think there will be a certain element of the policies that he mentioned during elections, but there would be a certain change, and he will modulate and moderate his policies according to the advice that he will get from the 16 intelligence agencies, from the cabinet, and from the, his own party, that he cannot continue with those sort of aggressive policies that he mentioned. But what is more important for Pakistan and the Muslim world is to what sort of an attitude will he have towards us. I think we have to be cautious. I think I only hope and pray that he will change his policy towards the Muslims, because it will then lead to something which would be highly undesirable and has very serious and dangerous consequences. So, and then there is also an interdependence between the Muslim countries and America, and that will be acting as a sort of a moderating influence on him. So I think that is another factor. Then we come to, our relations with India are very important. I think they are going through one of the worst phases in a historical perspective. We cannot expect any movement on the Kashmir problem till such time that there is a sense of sanity and peace between the two countries. So I think we'll have to wait, and I think the present policy of Pakistan, I personally think, is very correct. I'm not a part of the government. I have no axe to grind. But as far as India is concerned, I think we are taking the right policy. When they activate the line of control, we respond. But at the same time, we are also stressing on the need as a mature power and as a confident power, we are saying engage with us. Then I think as far as the Muslim world is concerned, we are trying to widen our relationship with all countries, including Saudi Arabia, of course, is one of our pillars, but so is with Iran. And we are trying that these countries do not fight amongst themselves, and so that the total energy and the focus of the Muslim world should be towards internal progress, towards economic development, and not towards fighting with each other and frittering away their very sort of limited resources. In the end, I would say that for Pakistan, the economic development of Pakistan, the stability of Pakistan is foremost. If internally we are strong, if economically we are viable and not dependent on foreign countries, then we can have an independent foreign policy and a policy which will give confidence to the people and move us forward. Our alliance, our partnership with China is of great value to us. And I think the CPEC can be, I'll use a cliche, the game changer, but that game changer can only be if Pakistan really addresses its own part of the responsibilities that it has in order to make the CPEC a success. And that means that you have to genuinely improve your standards of technology, of your governance, of all elements which go in making CPEC a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General Saab. On that pithy note, we have to conclude today's session. And let me thank Lieutenant General Retired Talat Masood Saab, Ambassador Ali Sarwar Naqvi Sahab, and Senator Sahar Kamran Sahiba. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you very much, audience. You have been excellent, phenomenal, actually. And you have really participated. Thank you very much for your time. let me now conclude the program. Viewers, you have listened to our participants and you have listened to the questions of the young people in audience as well. There are certain very important things to remember when it comes to foreign policy. The first thing is, foreign policy is going to be as good or bad as seriously you take yourself. If as a nation we are really focused at improving ourselves, to make everything better for ourselves, our foreign policy is going to be as important, as influential. When it comes to democratization in the society, that is precisely the idea behind everything, that democracy then focuses on policy making, and indirectly or directly, the people of Pakistan then are supposed to be making foreign policy. Is it not important not to just focus on the issues at surface, like why don't we have an FM, a foreign minister? Why don't we have X, Y, Z sitting where we think they should be sitting? And ask ourselves, what are we doing to improve ourselves? Is it not also important that when we make policy, we also try to continuously challenge ourselves? External challenges are there. Internal challenges will be there as well. Is it not about time that we ask ourselves that our imagination, is that on board? Is that helping us in shaping our future? Are we asking all the right questions? This is a question that I have to leave with you. And one more thing that was said earlier about Trump. Maybe what we need to do is to understand his policy, his statements as well. I'm sure most of us kept on catching snippets on television. We didn't follow his speeches because nobody thought that he's going to win. The important thing for us to understand is nobody has declared themselves anti-Islamic. This is today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.